Hi, everyone. Welcome to our final Industry Forum session of the day. I'd like to thank you all for coming out and attending and participating in this great dialogue with us throughout the day. It's been a really fun time. So this session is Canadian TV comedy, a new generation. SCTV, Kids in the Hall, the Trailer Park Boys. Canada has a really rich history in TV comedy. Is there a uniquely Canadian sense of humor? Is it the cold weather that makes us so funny? That wasn't funny. That's why I'm not a Canadian comedy writer. This current generation of creators, I think, is proving that the tradition of great and funny TV here in Canada is as strong as ever. So I'd like to introduce our guests for today. We have Jared Kizo, who's the creator, writer, and showrunner, and star of Crave TV's Letterkenny. Carolyn Taylor. Carolyn Taylor is the creator, showrunner, and one of the stars of CBC's The Baroness von Sketch Show. And Jay McCarrol and Matt Johnson are the creators and stars of Vice TV's Nirvana, the band, the show. And moderating this discussion is Jeff McNaughton, who's our senior manager at industry here at TIFF, and has the podcast, Well, Nobody's Perfect, that you should definitely check out. So I'll throw it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you all for being here. This is I'm really excited about this panel because talking about comedy is one of my favorite things. So we're going to jump right into it with a bit of an icebreaker, and that is, when did you realize that you were funny, and when did you have the confidence to turn that into a career?
Oh yeah, I can. Jay and I talk about this a lot, and I'll change the question a bit because I think as a kid I always thought I was like a funny kid. But I think for Jay and I together, which is what our show is about, when we realized that we liked making each other laugh was in high school. I think grade 10, and we went to different high schools, and we met through a mutual friend, and it was really like. He was a very cool guy at his high school, and I was a very nerdy guy at my high school. But together, for whatever reason, it was like instantly we were brothers. We were best friends. Everything I said would make him laugh. And I knew, for the first time in my life as a young person, I knew, if I'm making this guy laugh, the things that I do that make this guy laugh really are funny. And I mean really are funny in a way that I just didn't have a barometer before. And that was grade 10. And that definitely was it for me.
Very sweet, man.
But it's true. But it's really true.
It's true. Yeah, we found each other. We were both, I think, class clowns growing up. But it's always when you meet that person that's just like, okay, now we can really take it to the next level. And that was around like grade 10.
Yeah, we validated each other, I think, is what was happening.
I think it's weird because in my family, in families, everyone has their role. And my brother was the funny one in our family, or is the funny one. So I was like, I'm not the funny one. So I didn't grow up thinking I was funny at all. I was like, no, you're not. But I was in the Children's Shakespeare Company as a kid. Funny, again. And I was playing Snug the Joiner, and I got some big laugh on one of my lines. I was 9. I don't know, whatever. But and then it was like, what's this amazing feeling? And so that, I don't know, I think it just came from continuing to perform. But I don't think I was a class clown or anything like that, but just made my friends laugh, and they made me laugh. And just the fun of having a live audience and stuff always felt good.
Jared?
Well, you ask when we realized we were funny. I've been lucky in that I haven't had to audition for the last few years. But when I was last auditioning, Canadian casting directors, I think that they kind of make comedy out to be like navigating uncharted neurological pathways in the brain. So when I get back to the audition room, I'm still not sure that people will believe I can do comedy yet. But it basically just came from Nathan Dales and I throwing stuff up on YouTube and seeing what would stick, and Letterkenny worked for us.
Amazing. So before we jump into more questions, I want to give our panelists an opportunity to talk a little bit about their shows briefly, and then we'll go to a clip of a part of an episode. So Carolyn, do you want to start with Baroness von Sketch Show?
Sure. Have any of you guys seen the show? Okay, yay, right on. And just to be clear from my introduction, I'm one of the 4 creators, so I'm not the only creator of the show. The 4 of us are creators of it. But the 4 of us, Meredith McNeil, Jen Whalen, Aurora Brown, and myself, we came together and we wanted to just tell our stories and kind of have fun and satirize everyday life. Like, we weren't really interested in getting into crazy big wigs or playing in a studio, in bright colors and sort of representing comedy that way. We wanted to do a really kind of grounded approach to it. And so it was just exciting to find like-minded people and together to try to pull off something that represented what we were interested in. And we'd been told, any of our friends who went down to LA, it's like, in your 40s, you don't get any work. Like, you're not going to be on camera. Maybe you can get in a writing room, but not on camera. So it was exciting for us to say, no, actually, we're going to be on the show. We're going to write the show. We're going to create the show. And yeah. Is that an answer to the question?
Totally.
Sort of?
Let's check out a clip.
Okay.
So those are 2 different sketches, but they kind of work together in that sequence in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
They killed him.
they just killed him.
That's right.
Matt and Jay, do you want to talk a little bit about Nirvana the band, the show? A lot of people in this, probably many people in this audience haven't seen it because it comes out February 2nd, correct?
That's right. Yeah. If you saw our old web show, it's more or less the same format. It's a very simple show. It's basically a documentary that follows 2 musicians who just want to get a show at the Rivoli, and that's all that they're trying to do. And that seems quite simple and stupid, but the stupid things that they're willing to do to try to get this show are really quite crazy. The clip that we're showing, though, is from season 2, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's on theme. This is, we wanted to bring something that showed an example of us shooting in the real world. And so this is a clip shot during the 420 Weed March that happened last year. And the plot of the episode is that it's Jay's birthday, and Matt has forgotten Jay's birthday. And so they're going out, and Matt's going to show Jay a really, really good time. But things kind of go wrong because Jay gets really hungry. And so right now, Matt is going to get Jay snacks. But you'll see, you don't need to know much to follow this.
All right, let's roll the clip. All right, and last but not least, Jared.
Letterkenny is just kind of the portrait of small town life. It's loosely based on where I grew up in Listowel, Ontario. It's about groups in a small town, the Hicks, the Skids, and the hockey players, and how they're constantly doing battle over seemingly trivial things.
All right, let's show a clip. Is it often, I guess it's not common in television to be able to see your audience's reaction with your comedy. How does that feel?
Fantastic. It feels good. Actually, when our show was coming out, my girlfriend and I, we went around to we don't have a TV, so we went to different friends' houses every week to watch the episodes. So we got to have small scale. They'd had to laugh, right? Because what are they going to do? We're sitting right there. But it feels nice.
So because this is Canada's Top 10, I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the Canadian television comedies that have come before you. Lynn, in her introduction, talked about SCTV, Kids in the Hall, Trailer Park Boys. Were you inspired by Canadian television comedies? And did you actively try to differentiate your shows from what has come before?
Probably both.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the successes of the Canadian comedies that came before us, and the influences are obvious, I think, in everything that you see in Canadian comedy now. Kids in the Hall, great example. But at the same time, there are a lot of Canadian comedy tropes or things that we've seen before that we think are, patterns, I suppose, that we, actively try to steer away from. I don't really know how to put my finger on what those are.
CBC industry hackery.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, basically, I think that this problem is huge in this country, mostly because, as opposed to what you'd see in sort of smaller scale, so to speak, American or even international comedy, because in other countries, when executives make decisions that are bad or make shows that don't get seen, they get fired. That doesn't happen in this country, and it's a massive creative problem at any institutional level that the executives in this country fail upwards, literally. And I know that sounds crazy, but like you cannot get fired for making a show nobody watches in this country. Let that sink in, okay? If you fuck up and make a show that literally sucks, but just didn't take any risks and didn't get you in any political trouble, you're good. You keep your job for a year. And if that is the model within which 99.9% of the shows in this country are being made, then of course, if you want to do anything unique or good, you need to go outside that model. I think that's what you were trying to say, Jay.
Well, we also had a bit of a scorned upbringing. After our web show, we had a lot of meetings and a lot of opportunities come our way to see Nirvana the band hit the next level, and we were really excited about that. But every single meeting or executive or production company that we met with, we were running into the exact same sort of Canadian parameters and looking into demographics and content
Being told we
control.
needed to make the show with somebody else.
Yeah,
Or somebody needed to come in and run our show with us or for us.
They gutted us. Like we were gutted before we even started, and so that's why we never even tried. Like we never even tried because we knew that, you know, the only way we were going to make Nirvana the band again is if we could make Nirvana the band again, and Canada just didn't seem to want to do that with us. And so we were a bit like, well, you know, we felt a little burned about that. That's not to say that we aren't heavily influenced, just to answer the question, though, by some of the great things that have come out of this wonderful country.
Carolyn, you have a show on CBC.
Yeah.
Your show very much feels like it is influenced by the great comedies that were mentioned earlier, but also is paving the way for new types of comedy as well.
Yeah.
And if you could talk about kind of your inspirations, but at the same time, what are you trying to do differently with a show that is on CBC that is kind of that you haven't seen before, that's your own unique voice?
Yeah, well, I mean, for us, we knew we wanted to be on TV. We didn't want, you know, there are so many great web series out there, but we knew, no, we're making this to be on TV. And we, a few of us anyway, had sat in development and on other networks, you know, where they're like, oh my God, I love this. And they throw you a little bit of money. And then your project just sits on a shelf forever until it becomes irrelevant. And you're just like, fucking want to just scream and move down to the States. And so we had learned, we'd been burned a few times by that different members of the group. And so for us, we actually knew we wanted to be with CBC. We were like, no, CBC, this is a smart broadcaster. We believed in the intelligence of the audience of CBC and in Canada. And so when we brought the project in, we shopped it around. We brought it to a couple places. We were offered a development by another network to go into a web series. And I was like, that's not going to happen. Or we'll sit on a shelf in development. So we'd learned that lesson from previous explorations. And so when we went to CBC, we had this great meeting with our execs, and it was an instant chemistry where it was like they liked what we were doing, and they weren't saying things like, let's recast it, or let's bring in some other showrunner, or let's, you know, change the whole thing. And for us, as long as we had creative control in that way, or could maintain the creative vision and had other people who wanted to collaborate with us on that creative vision and not ask us to be something that we weren't, we knew that was going to work for us. And I think we were put into development the next day after that meeting, and we knew, okay, this is, and for all, I mean, I'm not here to defend the CBC, but for us, it's been a really great partnership, and we wanted it to be the CBC that we wanted the CBC to be. We're like, come on, and we had, and so far, that's been a really good relationship for us, and it's worked out well for us.
And Jared, in terms of influences, what were some of your influences with Letterkenny, and also to end on that, because we are talking about distribution and broadcasting, what made Crave TV make sense for your show?
The F word is very, very important to us, and so we needed to go to a place where we could say that as many times as possible. when we were in the development stage with Crave TV, we submitted a script that had 14 F words on one page, and that's the hockey players on the show. They go bananas. And our execs at Crave and Bell didn't bat an eye, so I think we've had a significantly different experience than you guys have. I'll say the show's gotten even filthier. So yeah, we struck gold there, and I'm not just saying that because Bell execs may or may not be in the room. I don't even know if they are. But yeah, we got really lucky there, and that's 100% genuine.
And your influences and
Oh, I'm a big Trailer Park Boys fan. I love Trailer Park Boys. That's a show that just makes me feel good, and that was a priority going into, call it for what it is. Everybody likes to have the odd beer, maybe like 4 or 5, or maybe 7 or 8 on a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever, and that show just kind of makes you feel a little bit better about your bad habits. And I'm just kidding around, but it's a show that makes me feel good at a very grassroots level. It's something that's a positive experience for me to watch, and that's why I kept going back. And Jonathan Torrance is J-Rock. I mean, just gets no better. Yeah.
Plus, I'll say it is doing what your show does so well, which is representing a real culture and not bullshitting the audience about what that culture is. I would say that you can draw a very direct line between those two shows. It's weird that show, when you see it outside of Canada, Trailer Park Boys I'm talking about, most people think it's an American show. And I wonder if you guys get the same reaction. Like, do people in the States, when they talk about your show, think, oh, this is small town America?
Well, yeah, that started pretty early for us when we started to get some traction on Reddit. I still don't really know how to navigate that site, but we have Reddit to thank for our numbers early on. But there was a lot of feedback from small town Idaho, North Dakota, all these places all over the place where I know somebody with that accent. Or that could be my town, but yeah, that vernacular, that language that I grew up with in small town Ontario, I think there's pieces of it all over the place. And that's what makes the show accessible.
Do you think that cultural specificity and being a Canadian show helps or hinders your appeal abroad for your shows?
I think it depends on who you ask. For us, we have a lot of sort of Canadian reference, or not a lot, but they're Canadian references, and so some believe, if you want to get a U.S. sale, you got to get rid of the word postal code and put in zip code. Or when we're saying Caesars at the cottage, we actually had to do a take that was, Bloody Marys, just in case, Americans wouldn't be able to understand. They don't know what a Caesar is, and cancel the order. So
salad.
It's so bizarre that we sometimes have this thing of having to pander. It's like, no, if you don't know what the drink is, you look it up, or you ask your friend, or, oh, imagine that there's a name for it that's a little different, and there's fucking clam juice in it in Canada. So I just find that antiquated. Yet at the same time, if it's a reality and it's a small thing, I don't know, to make a sale, sure, you do what you have to do. But I think internationally, I was talking with some friends from Norway, and they're like, oh, we love, Canadian culture, and they're hungry for it. In an international community, we've got our hot, prime minister, and with all the buffoonery happening south of the border, I would think that there'd be more of an appetite for Canadian. Not shying away from being Canadian and just showing who we are and our cities, and not trying to be like a sort of fake kind of American town.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that as well. I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying about what a casting director's perception of you is and how difficult comedy really is. I think if you simplify it, you're funny or you're not. And if you're funny, you think you're going to transcend. You'll find that international audience, whether you're saying a or a boot or whatever. If you're doing something funny, then they can attach themselves to it.
But we're also seeing a very different cultural moment in this country, and that's that Toronto, maybe it's because Jay and I live here, and we're, I think, pretty patriotic about this place. But Toronto, I think, is having a bit of a moment internationally. Our show, we screened at a bunch of different festivals around the world in season 1, and season 2 is about to screen in Rotterdam, which is a world away. We screened our show in Zurich, and everywhere we screened it, it was like these little details are what get people excited. It's exactly like what your friend from Norway was saying. Getting away from that stuff or trying to polish it, or even it out or trying to fake it as though this is not a very, very specific Canadian place is so stupid. You're literally throwing production value in the garbage. Like, you live here, you know this place, you know the streets, you know where you can shoot. Like that. These are the things that like New Yorkers get to use, and it makes their movies look amazing. Well, you can use them too, and the world is fully ready to accept that. And Toronto is cool. Like, which is I think a very hard thing to say, and I'm sure even I sound like a douche for saying it. But
you sound cool.
Really?
Yeah.
Good. Outside of this city, except for like stupid ass Montreal, people think Toronto is cool. Like, and so to say I'm making a show from Toronto, here's Toronto, this is what Toronto looks like, here's what people from Toronto, this is what they do. That's
a real deal for sure.
Yeah.
We shoot Toronto like unfiltered.
And that works into our marketing campaign. Like our show, I know it seems crazy, but our show's not a Canadian show. Like we're made out of Vice New York. Like they're the people who work on the marketing for our show. They're the people who figure out how they're going to sell this. And they angle it as though this is a show that they get made from Canadians. In fact, I think their plan is to, before each episode, say this was delivered to us by a bunch of Canadians. Like leaning on that to say things. Just that this country has an identity that's not so close to the United States as it has been in the past, and that's a tool you can use.
And Jared, your show, Letterkenny, is to my knowledge is based on Listowel, Ontario. How important is location for you in terms of having a location that may feel like a small town anywhere in Canada in a way?
Well, one thing that was a real bugger is that there's no maple trees up around Sudbury area. Everything is coniferous. I think is the word there, and we're looking for deciduous. Is that what I'm after? I'm nailing this. Sure. That's an out of the park home run. There's a lot of Listowel in Sudbury. And I think it's good for the actors from the city to kind of be around that, to be in that big small town and see the people and see how they're different from city people. And also in small towns, I think that there's more of a willingness to have a good laugh at yourself. So that's something that's also important.
And how is the town receive the show? Do they feel like they're part of the joke?
Mom got one backhanded comment at the bank from a woman who said, that's about us, right? And like, I'm not assuming that that's her voice. I'm not like it's probably not her voice, but that's probably what it sounded like. It's what it sounded like when my mom said it back to me. But the biggest fans of Letterkenny are in my hometown in Listowel, Ontario. I think I'm pretty lucky for that. Yeah, no real bite back, fortunately.
And Carolyn, what about you? How important is locations for you in terms of making your show feel Canadian?
Super important. Just for actually the feel of the show, yes, Canadian, but actually just to not feel like a studio comedy, because sometimes, I don't know, I just feel like you can smell it when it's been constructed and something doesn't look legit. And so for us, we're almost 100% location, which makes it crazy for shooting. Like, we are racing around the city, but and out into the cottage country. We shot that at we're at the cottage apparently their cottage is like an hour outside Toronto. Anyway, whatever. It's a shitty lake. But yeah, we love the locations. Like, we're not trying to hide anything. I mean, we're not shooting Canadian flags and like the CN Tower. That isn't really the vibe of our show, that stylistically. But we love the 100% location feel, the natural light. Like, just so that when you're watching, you're like, oh, I know that neighborhood. If I don't know it, I know a neighborhood like it. It feels legit. It feels real. It doesn't feel like a make-believe sort of sketch show world.
And Matt and Jay, we were talking a little bit before this panel about the locations that you use are very recognizable in Toronto. How does that elevate the stakes of what you're doing?
Elevate the stakes
in terms of in terms of the idea of the people that are part of your show. Some of them don't realize they're part of it.
Yeah, there's two sides of it. Like, we're trying to do the thing where you can't believe you're watching this on television. Like that scene that we showed before with hundreds of people who didn't give us permission to put them on TV. Like no other show is going to do that. We use the theme from Indiana Jones without permission. Like no other show can do that. Like we shoot at Nathan Phillips Square without permission. We shoot. Well, I mean, I don't want to go through our whole season, but like we are always trying to find the biggest, most illegal place where a show made by an actual studio would laugh at you if you said, okay, so we're going to open the scene in the Toronto Reference Library, we're going to 3D print a gun, take it to a bank, and rob the bank. And they would be like, okay, hold on. So we got to build the Toronto Reference Library? And you can say, no. First of all, we already shot it. I'm just letting you know about it now. And second of all, it's like this is what you're going to put on television. But P.S. we have no permission from anybody to do this. Like that is what we're trying to do. Like get you to question the very existence of what you're watching on television. Like especially if you know anything about TV, I imagine the people that this will be the most confounding show to watch are other people who make television shows.
Yeah,
because they're going to be like, that's not fair. But what you realize, and I think this is an important lesson for everybody, especially any young person out there who's thinking about doing something on your own, is you can tell people, fuck off, I'm doing it, and it works. And that's not a joke. If you stick to your guns and you say, you know what, I am going to do this, and guess what, you're going to figure out how. And then you hang up the phone. We sold 3 seasons. Like this works. You just need to stand up for yourself and reject the going thinking that, well, nobody's ever done this before and we could get in trouble. Which is what every network in the world is thinking all the time. Because again, in this country, you don't get fired for doing bad work. You get fired for breaking the rules.
We have a lot of fun making this show. It's really, it's really great. Yeah. We've turned a lot of these locations into some real spy grounds too, like some of the espionage. Yeah, like I mean, when we're working with real people, and we're always telling our camera guys, "Get out of here! You're going to spoil us." Because as soon as people see us with cameras and us acting crazy, then they know something's up and they're not going to deal with us. If they see us acting crazy with no cameras, they might give us some gold. And we've been Honest Ed's library, like all these big places in Toronto, and we've turned them into these spots where we're walking around, giving each other looks from across the room. Camera guys kind of poking around a corner.
It's an operation.
It's a real operation. It's been a blast.
So last question before we go to audience questions, because I'm sure that there's many. How has your show benefited from online viewing windows like YouTube? Or because 2 of these shows, the first iteration of them in a way were web series. Was it Letterkenny Problems? Was that the initial idea for Letterkenny?
Yeah, it's the reason we got a TV show. You know, having that to bring to the networks, having a view count, having a number of subscribers and stuff, it's a big statement. And I think that it's easier for a network to get behind something like that that's already somewhat of like a proven product. So yeah, very simply, we wouldn't have a TV show if we didn't test drive it on YouTube first.
And Carolyn, like one of the first, my first introduction to Baroness One sketch show was via someone shared the Gene sketch with me on Facebook, and something about sketch comedy works really well in terms of online viewing because you can watch a small sketch, which introduces you to the full episode. Yeah, it's kind of like the song versus an album in a way. Has it helped in terms of marketing your show and getting people to watch it?
Yeah, it was huge for us having that being released digitally. Like we released Locker Room Birthday, the one where you turn 40 and you're okay being naked at the gym as a woman, and scaring all the younger girls away because I can walk around with your tits out. And and that one we released. We talked with the CBC a lot about our strategy. What are we going to do? And we wanted to send something out before the first episode aired. And that one we put it out on Facebook, I guess, and it just started getting shared, and it was ridiculous. Like we had never been exposed to that. Our show hadn't even gone on the air yet, and we just kept seeing our numbers going up. And I was texting one of our execs at CBC, and we're like, "What? It's at 40,000." At that time, we couldn't. It's 47,000. It's been a minute. Like what? And it just kept getting higher and higher until we were, I think, 1.5 million, something like that, within a week, or I don't know what it was, but it was really fast, and so that was huge for us before we had reached before we'd even been on the air in Canada. And then what we were doing, our strategy was to release a couple of sketches every week, so to get people talking and stuff. And then YouTube's been great for us too, because it's not geo-blocked, and same with Facebook, so people all around the world can watch it, and you can look at your analytics and be like, oh my God, like women in Pakistan love this show, and men in Australia think it's amazing. And so that was kind of fun. It really helped us. It's been great because not everyone can watch TV, and our stuff is bite-sized. So like sort of, it's like the song gets released on the internet and the mixtape is kind of the TV experience.
Awesome. Jay, Matt, do you have anything to add on?
We didn't put anything on YouTube. It's kind of crazy. Like, we hosted our own stuff on our website, and when we started, we had very small expectations. Matt and I moved to the city together just as an excuse to finally materialize something of this sort of dynamic that we had since we were kids. And so we decided we'll make something, we'll put it online.
We had to do that because the stuff we were doing had so much copyright infringement in it. We're talking about back in 2006.
Yeah.
So YouTube was just a year old, and they were very good at taking down things that didn't have permission to use music, or like somebody could lodge a complaint and they would take your stuff down. So we had to host it flash on our own.
But what was fun is that we generated most of our sort of fan base, and we got some buzz rolling with just our website. And we only had, I think we used to look at some of this. Richie was showing us the analytics of it, looking at the unique
guys know
views.
Richie? Richie Chung?
Richie?
Yeah.
I think someone in the back there. But he was showing us some analytics. It was fun to watch, like, our site that had no advertising, and we were just, I think the most we did is we put Facebook events for when we came up with a new episode every several months. And that got, like, people attending our release.
Yeah.
That was our big sort of buzz that we had going on.
In 2008.
Yeah, 2008.
But it wasn't like, we didn't have the fairy tale story of having our web show be so successful that then we got to make a TV show. At that time, it was only people our age watching it. And we tried to sell the show based on what had happened on the web to, again, executives in their 40s who were, as I've said before, yeah.
All right. And with that, let's go to audience questions. There's 2 mics on either side. Do you need one of these mics?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So there's a question right
I
here.
know I'm talking to a young crowd, but what I was wondering is, are you interested in doing political sketches? Because I like politics, and I'm into doing political sketches, and also sketches about cute little animals that make little blunders and so on. Okay, thank you.
Who wants to talk
Is that
about
for me?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's awesome. Well, we sort of do small P political sketches, so we're not going to do something where we're making fun of Trudeau or or the mayor, Tory, or any of that stuff like 22 Minutes might. For us, it's more social satirical. So we'll look at the political, by exploring like gender studies and a gender studies, queer theory reading group and the small P political type of stuff. And as far as animals doing weird things, I want to give you something for that. But we do have a sketch about a woman. It's me obsessed with looking at cat videos on her computer. I don't know if you've seen that. And it's really, I kind of like this sketch because it doesn't really have a beginning, middle, and end. It just sort of comes into the world of this woman who just watches cat videos and can't pull up her actual work when her boss comes in, and then just goes off down the hallway and the scene's over. So you can look at that one. That's all I got.
All right. Other question back there.
Hello, this is a question, I guess, for all of you. What's the biggest move you made in your career? Biggest choice you made in your career to advance yourself?
That's a good question. Who wants to tackle that one first?
For me, it was to stop saying yes to every audition request that my agent sent me, and to just start focusing on the ones that I would be proud of, proud to put on my demo reel. As soon as I put more focus into things that I cared about and was passionate about, I started to move up.
Anyone else want to add to that?
I quit my day job. I'd gotten into Second City Touring Company, and that was only a guarantee of $85 a week, doing one Sunday show and maybe the odd understudying for main stage. And I was working this office job where I'd just gotten a promotion the same day I got into touring company, and I was going to get the office and expense account and all that cool stuff, and then there was touring company, and the company, my bosses said, listen, you have to make a choice. And I used all my vacation to do my rehearsals for Second City. And without any promise of anything, I was like, okay, I'm quitting. And I left my job and just went into my $85 a week and was like, I'm doing Tourco. And it was the best decision I could have made, and never looked back after that. So if you believe in what you want to pursue, just fucking go for it. Just go, leap in. Why not? Why the hell not? You can't do it if you don't actually fully go for it, I believe.
Mine would be probably when I think it was a bit one-sided. Matt and I had planned on moving to Toronto, but I really wanted to make it happen. I think you were at York.
I already lived in Toronto.
Well, you lived at York University on campus.
Yeah.
That's like an hour away. I did as well live in the city.
It's him.
Yeah, hey, take it easy. But I knew that that Matt was sort of a special type, I would say. I think he's a lottery ticket, so I really kind of strapped on. I was like, no, we're moving in together. We're going to make something. And I went and found us an apartment that we shot in. And looking back, I'm glad that I really muscled that in there.
For me, it was when I moved out of that apartment and made the Dirties. I said, I can't live in this place anymore. I don't want to make this show anymore. And I went and made a feature film on my own.
The relationship is crumbling before us. Next question, right here.
Yeah, just to preface, where are you two from?
Jay and myself, I was born at Toronto General Hospital, but we both met in Mississauga.
We lived like...
In Mississauga?
Yeah, about 2 blocks away from one another in a place called Erin Mills.
Oh, okay. I know where that is.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with comedy. Well, it does, your shows. Did you have early demographics going in? Was that important? And do you know what your demographics are now? If something's funny, I'll watch it. I don't care if it's written for 90-year-olds or 10-year-olds.
It's so insular. It's just us making it for our friends.
Right.
Like that's what drives us. If we can make each other laugh and the people who are working on our show, we don't care anywhere outside of that. That's actually where you get into problems. If we start thinking about who we're making it for, and then we will gladly, be told who likes our show. Great, but it doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, we were similar. We're making it for ourselves and for our friends. So like when I'm working on a sketch, I'm like, is this going to make Tracy Harrity laugh? Is it going to make her laugh? If it is, okay, that's I want to make. We all of us wanted to make our friends laugh, and those were the people we were thinking of. And we have friends. I have friends who are in their 70s and friends who are fucking in their teens. So and I think from what we've heard back, it seems to be across the board. People who like it. But I agree with Jay. You can't really go in thinking we're going to write this for this person. We were writing it for ourselves, and we thought if we find it funny, there's going to be other people who do, hopefully.
No, I was just wondering because your show specifically is for CBC. Did they not want demographics, or do you not know what they are now? I mean,
we didn't have to submit any.
No, I'm not.
Oh.
So much of that stuff is predetermined by the very fact that they had their show made. Like the
Right.
CBC knew who this show was being
Okay.
made for. They didn't need to talk about it. Do you understand what I mean?
Because you're dependent on commercials. They're not, right? And
I'm talking about their show.
their show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so our commercial ad space got sold.
Right.
And
okay.
So I imagine, you could be as literal and say, well, we're women in our 40s, so it's going to be women in their 40s who want to watch it. But that hasn't specifically actually been, but we didn't go in, I don't know, but when I was talking about making our friends laugh, well, yeah, I guess our friends are kind of women in their 40s and 50s and 30s. But it'd be maybe better to ask them. I actually don't know what they had in mind. We just went and made what we wanted to make, and we didn't have a sales pitch about demographics or anything like that.
Okay. And Letterkenny?
Well, our show came out on Christmas this year, and I don't think that we really have a target age range or demographics. Certainly, we're getting more responses from high school kids and hockey players, but it feels pretty good when someone tweets at us that they watched it with their dad or their grandma or grandpa and that they thought it was funny too.
Well, the hockey players were going to play for Team Canada, right? So There you go. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other question right here.
Hi, this question is for all of you. You all are content creators as well as being in the productions that you have. What does pushing the comedic envelope look like to you?
Do you mean specifically as performers?
As performers, as content creators, what does going the extra mile or going next level with comedy look like to you guys? Or do you think about that at all?
I think Jay and I are definitely trying to say things on our show that, with one another, that we can't believe the other person just said, if that makes any sense. Like, I'll always try to say something that's so unbelievably politically incorrect that it's just funny that somebody in a TV show would even try to say something like this. I'm not sure if that's what you mean by pushing the envelope, but I think pushing the envelope in terms of good taste, that's what I think Jay and I both try to do. But in terms of work,
I think that something that really is a real victory for us in terms of pushing the envelope, I guess, if this might answer your question, is that if we're looking back at something about our performance and we've seen something put together or cut together and we laugh at it and we think it's really funny, but at the same time, we're kind of looking at each other being like, that I've never seen that on TV before, this sort of comedic moment. This doesn't feel like it belongs on TV. And then we get this sort of shit-eating grin where it's just like, and we're going to put it on TV. That's what, like, where we get, I guess, the most excited about when we feel like we're actually conscious of pushing the envelope. Other than that, I don't think we're really too conscious about it because, as we said before, we're just trying to make each other laugh and being true to just what's right in front of us.
I think another thing we do quickly is we just try to do things that make sense, so that they make sense logically to us. And I think oftentimes those don't make sense from the perspective of what you can get on television. So often we're just driven by that. Like, what makes sense here? Well, it makes sense. We have an episode where we break into the premiere of Star Wars Episode 7. It makes sense that the cameras would go with us and film Star Wars Episode 7 on screen, and we would cam it. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like, we wouldn't limit ourselves by what legally we can and can't do. And so if we just follow Jay and my instinct on, okay, so what happens next? All right, so they just do this. We let other people tell us what we can't do, and then we laugh at them for being so stupid. And we find that we have enough people working on the show that it's brutally humiliating for the people who try to defy this.
And how has Vice been with that in terms of giving you full reign in terms of your content?
They're the best partners we could have had. They literally, like, we just drop off the show and they put it out. They're so supportive. It comes from a long history of doing this type of work in feature films and knowing how to do this legally, but we don't even get notes.
Other questions? This one center back.
Yes, it's another question for all of you. I'm wondering, when I see the excerpts, and I've seen some of the shows, but not the whole seasons, what's the part of improvisation that you all put in there, or is there one?
Yeah, I can speak for us. We, a few of us, Aurora, Jen, and I are all trained in improvisation at Second City. We all went through that. We were all on main stage at various times. And so improv for us is huge. And Meredith McNeil is such a gifted improviser. She's classically trained out in the UK, but just has a natural gift for improv. So the four of us will have a script written, but then we always leave room for improv. It's like, as long as the script feels logical and you understand it, and we've got the jokes in there and we get those covered, get coverage of that, then some of the best stuff that we've done has been these little extra improvised moments. Like when you saw in We're at the Cottage, Paul Braunstein fucking the guacamole and the chips. That was, I mean, what was written in was he was supposed to be like boom, boom, boom in the hot tub and like that, but then he took it to the next level and started fucking the chips, right? And that was his improvisation. And we certainly create a culture on set where someone's not going to go and yell cut in the middle of that and be like, hey, wait a minute. So we allow that improv to happen. And the only thing that really curbs our improv is when we're on the clock and it's like, okay, shit, we gotta make our day. But improv is a huge part of what we do, yet I wouldn't call it an improvised show. It's very scripted. We get our approvals on our scripts, all of that, but then there's this room to play so that it doesn't feel doesn't feel scripted, and some of the surprising moments just come from improv for us.
Yeah, we have a pretty open door policy for our actors and their ideas. as far as improv in the scene goes, not often. No, what happens is if an actor has an idea, we'll discuss it before. Say, okay, try it out or don't. So everything that we do in the scene is rehearsed beforehand, but where we do give the actors opportunity to improv is after the last word on the script has been spoken. And Jacob Tierney, our director, will kind of let the actors go and do their thing for 10 to 15 seconds, and 95% of the time we end up using it.
We have time for one more question. Last question up here.
Any tips on selling a show through to a network? There could probably be a whole talk in itself, but
And take it to YouTube, build an audience, gather subscribers. If you can't with that concept, try another one. And if that concept doesn't work, try another one after that.
Mine would be know what your show is, collaborate with the right people, make sure that you've got the right mix of personalities and ideas and skill sets. And if you're going to pitch, have a demo. So like if you don't have a show already on YouTube or clips, like have a demo, because it's very hard to just hand a bunch of scripts over, or a script of something package. And it's like, people, how are they supposed to know what you really see? So if you can show it to them, even if it's guerrilla style, like that's what we did. We just shot a dirty demo for like no money, and we ripped off, we had Beastie Boys Sabotage, and then we just like threw everything we could into it because we didn't need any permission at that point. And that really helped our execs see what we wanted to do and really give them a clear idea of what that vision was and whether they wanted to work, with us or not.
I think a good idea for young people is, instead of selling a show, you sell somebody a production model. And that is something that we've done with our features and with television that has had it's got a great success rate, because if you're selling, whether it's a network or a distributor or even a production company, a production model, and by that I mean you are going to change the way that they envision a show being made, and that's what this show is, or that's what your idea is, then you're in a completely different conversation. And then all of a sudden you're dictating the terms of the creation of this thing, because you know how to do it and they don't. And that's very fascinating to people in positions of power, because everybody's trying to make things cheaper, especially television. And if you all of a sudden can show up at somebody's door and be like, not only do I have an idea for a show that you may or may not like, but I'm going to completely make it and deliver it to you, and you're not going to have to worry about all the nonsense union garbage that you have to go through every single day of your life. In fact, I'm just going to hand it to you. And so long as you can develop some type of rapport of trust with your partners, then everybody wins that way. You get to do everything you want, and they get all the accolades of having made a show without needing to go through all the hoops that normally they do. Because when an executive looks at you, what they're thinking is, what is this guy going to do to my life? Like, how's my life going to change when I make this woman's show? And if you can say, your life's not going to change at all, I'm just going to give you this show, and you can keep on doing so you can keep going to the cottage or whatever it is that you want to do. You can keep doing that stuff. That is, right now especially, like in the last 5 years, that's a very, very, very juicy deal for creators everywhere, and people are slowly going to start, I think, modifying their pitches to instead include a model of how this show is going to be made, as opposed to just a good idea.
Thank you all so much for being here and rounding out our industry forum today. This was fantastic. Before we wrap up, I just want to call Kathleen Drum, our industry director, to the stage just to say some final words about today's events.
Hi everyone. Just a couple of things I wanted to say, and a little tiny bit of housekeeping in relation to tonight's party. So this has been our first ever Canada's Top 10 Industry Forum, and around about this time last year we were sitting around and we were thinking we really want to do something that brings people into the building, that really helps to build a community of Toronto filmmakers. And it's exciting for me to see in particular Matt Johnson here on the stage, because Matt, you were the inspiration for our first event, and that was our first breakfast at TIFF, when after Matt made some provocative comments about access to festival, and access to finance. And, you know, we want to have these conversations and we want to get you guys in here. And if you've got thoughts on what we should be covering, then, you know, please send them our way. So I just want to thank everybody today for coming along and from being part of this, from the breakfast all the way through the sessions, our moderators throughout the day, and all of our panelists. Thanks very much. And I also want to thank the tech team, front of house, our amazing volunteers, and my incredible industry team who've done a lot of work over the new year, over Christmas, to pull the logistics together so that this day would work. Jeff McNaughton, who's sitting here on the stage, Brittany Allen, Gabby Leith, and especially our very talented industry programming manager, Lynn Crocker. So let's give them a big round of applause. And before we say goodnight for the evening, a quick note for those of you who are heading to the opening night party. If you have a hard ticket, you will need to exchange it for a wristband before you go upstairs to Malaparte. And you can get the wristband outside the cinema from the staff and volunteers who are waiting to give these to you. Have a great night, everyone, and please come back for Canada's Top 10 Film Festival. I'm sure you've got strong ideas about local cinema and strong ideas about what your colleagues are doing, so make sure you see them before you have those strong ideas. Thanks very much, everyone.
See ya.